Question 6. What have you learned about technologies from the process of constructing this product? I knew that when I started this course I was going to have to use a variety of different software that I did not know much about. Adobe Photoshop CS5 was one of these programs. I'd used this program before starting the course, so I had some knowledge about how to use some of the basic features included. However, by the end of the course I had a wider variety of knowledge on how to use a lot more features in the program to edit and manipulate images to get them to a very professional standard. Another program I had to learn about was Adobe InDesign CS5, which is a desktop publishing application that I knew absolutely nothing about. I had to learn through the help of my teacher and by trial and error to achieve the magazine page that I wanted. Photoshop has allowed me to successfully create 3 of my 4 pages to a near professional standard. It started off with creating a document which was with the correct size. With Photoshop you can choose from a range of international paper sizes, and with this I chose A4. Once I'd taken all the images I wanted to use in my magazine, I had to manipulate them using Photoshop. The main tool that I used was the Quick Selection tool, which is able to differentiate between one area and another by dragging over the area I want to keep. Once I had selected the area I wished to keep, I had to inverse the selection by hitting Shift, Ctrl and I, and once the selection was inversed, I hit the Delete key. To assist in the cropping of an image from its background, I also used the Quick Mask mode. The key term is white reveals and black conceals. I'd use the eraser tool in white to carefully select an area which I wished to remove. For example, this was along the edge of an image. Once I'd done this, I would use the opposite in black, which would then reveal the section that I wanted to keep instead of removing. I would then exit out of the Quick Mask mode, inverse the selection, and then delete the area that I did not wish to keep. When I came round to add in the main features, for example the masthead and the barcode, I had to make sure that all the features were in line and symmetrical. I did this by using the ruler tool, which is a tool which is used on most Adobe software. You activate it by clicking Ctrl and R. And this shows a ruler that is horizontally and vertically across the top and the left of the canvas. Once it's appeared, you can then click and drag on either side and drag a line onto the canvas. You can then use these lines to make sure everything is symmetrical and ends up looking professional. Some of the simple tools I already knew how to use, and they were the shape tools. These allowed me to place in shapes like rectangles in order to create my iconic masthead. This was made symmetrical using the ruler tool, so I knew how big I wanted the masthead to be without making it too big to obscure some of the other features on the page. One of the next features that I used multiple times when manipulating my images was the spot removal tool. This works by matching the colours around the selected area to remove spots or other unwanted features on an image. This is a technique that is used across most types of print media to remove the unwanted blemishes on an image to make it look much cleaner and more professional. The clone stamp tool was also a very useful tool when editing my images. An example of where I used this was to remove branding from my hoodie in my editor photograph. Superdry is not a brand that is stereotypically associated with hip-hop, so I had to remove any association to it. The clone stamp tool does this by targeting an area in which you wish to clone, and then by simply brushing over the area you wish to remove, it replaces it with the selected cloned area. The eyedropper tool is used to pick specific colours from the canvas, and this can then be saved as a swatch by clicking on the colour on the toolbar and then clicking Add to Swatches. This then adds the specific colour onto your swatches palette, which then can be used to select from if you wish to use it. By doing this, it helps for me to stay with my house style. In order to create a diverse magazine, I had to make sure that I was using a variety of different fonts instead of the standard ones available. In order to obtain these, I went to thefont.com and searched for the fonts that I wished to use and downloaded them. Once I had these fonts, I was able to then add different effects to them in Photoshop by clicking the FX button at the bottom of the layers to bring up the effects. For example, on my masthead, I added a slight inner shadow to make it look as if it was pushed into the red background. I used the pen tool to wrap specific sections of text around the images I placed on the canvas. This gives the magazine a more professional finish as the text is not all straight or overlapping the images. You select the anchor points by selecting slightly away from the images to create a contour. Once I had the full shape, I connected all the anchor points back up to create a box I could type in. InDesign can be very useful in producing different types of media products such as newspapers, posters and magazines. I used InDesign for my double page spread as it would be easier to create wrapped text around images and would generally look more professional. In order for me to start creating my page, I had to create two A4 pages which went side by side to create an A3 page. On each of these pages there were 3 columns in which I was able to add the content for my double page spread. I also applied a bleed around the edges of these pages. This is a printing term that refers to any print that goes beyond the edge of the sheet of paper. The paper then is trimmed to cut out the bleed, and this is necessary because it's very hard to print to the edge of a piece of paper. So the bleed allows for the document to be made slightly bigger and then trimmed down to size so that the document is at the edges. Using InDesign made it a lot easier for me to create a drop capital on the page. All I had to do was highlight the text that I wished to make bigger than the other, and then change the amount of lines that it would spread over in order to create this drop capital. Image quality suffered dramatically on InDesign when I first imported my images from Photoshop. In order to get a high quality image, you go to right click on the image, display performance and high quality. By doing this, the quality of the image is increased and therefore making it possible for me to save the document to a high standard. In order for the text to wrap around the image of Jack's hand, I had to make sure that all of the InDesign knew how to find the edge of his hand instead of the edge of the entire document. I did this by going to Object, Clipping Path, Options and Text Wrap. Once this was done, all I had to do was select the text around his hand and go to Windows and Text Wrap. This then successfully wrapped the text around his hand in a neat manner. I believe that I have learned a lot about these programs throughout the course, and there are definitely skills that will be kept for life. I think that it is slightly easier to work with Photoshop because it allows you to create various different layers and work with the different features which you can clearly see. InDesign is a little different, and I believe it was more complex to work with, as there were no layers and it was hard to select certain features.